What is that? Back up. Not done? Good job. Should be back winding in 15 seconds, but... Hey, Connor's here. We're back on the 2014 Explorer with the 3.5 water pump replacement. So, water pump's installed. The outside timing or inside timing guides for the secondary or primary timing chain, I should say, is installed. And we're going to go ahead and install the tensioners for the secondary timing chain. As I showed you earlier in the previous video, the wear marks on the old ones, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. You feel them with your thumbnail? They need to be replaced. So we got new ones. We got a whole kit. As I stated before, 90738S. These are the new ones. So we got to lube up the O-rings a little bit with some oil. And we'll pop them in there. So the first thing we want to do is we want to pop this lower chain guide on. And make sure it sits on there so it's not stuck, because otherwise it won't line up with your chain like it's supposed to. Put a little dab of oil on your O-ring. That blue locking tab is there for the moment. When we go to install the cam phasers, I'll show you how to remove that. Okay, so as I said before, I like to work from the back to the front, previous video, so we're going to install these two cam phasers first. That is the right side of the engine. You always look at the engine from the back. This would be the back of the engine, that's the front of the engine, obviously. So that's your right side. That matters because these cam phasers have an R and an L, so in this situation we want to use the R timing mark. There's pegs that correspond with these pins on the camshaft. You have to make sure they index properly with that hole, and not the other holes. You're going to have yourself a problem. So, this is a secondary timing chain. The kit comes with the new chain. Because we're replacing all the other stuff, we're going to replace the chains too. So, they have two black links on them. We want to index that so it's lined up with that one there. And this one over here. And this does make a little bit of a pain in the rear to get the timing chain cam phaser assemblies back on there. We'll get a bolt for each one of those and we'll put them in. So I like to hold everything kind of in the position that it's going to be when we get there. And you should feel them both index with the camshaft. They may not, of course, index immediately. You can also pull that blue clip out now. Makes it easier to do it now than do it later, so. Oh, sure. Drop the bolt, Rick. Sometimes they're a little bit of a snug fit, so it takes a little bit for them to. Oh, that one's indexed, but it wanted to move the camshaft just a little bit because of the load on the cam sprocket. So that'll sit there because of the chain. And I have this one put on there so we can grab our bolt wherever that went. Here it is. Make sure we clean the threads off real good with the shop rag so we don't have any dirt making an interference there. So now I need to move the camshaft a little bit to index the other one. And I figure for Luke's sake, what better tool? What better tool to do that with? So now we can go back over here and you can watch. Luke, this one's for you, bud. You're welcome. There, so that one's indexed back into a neutral position. That one's completely seated now. We need our T55 Torx, and we'll go look up a torque spec for these. Now, these are torque yield bolts, so make sure your wrench is on there good and tight. Your good and tight crescent wrench too. Use the good one. So your first step is 30 foot-pounds. Make sure you move your wrench corresponding to the cam. Don't count on the chain to take the torque load for you. Mika, get out of there. Fucking dog. She listens like Luke Strasser. Next step is to loosen it one full turn. That's close enough because it's finger tight. Gaining more than that's not going to do you any good. After you loosen them up, go back to 18 foot-pounds. Jesus. Come on. Digital torque wrenches are kind of touchy. Come on. After your 18 foot-pounds, then you gotta switch to torque angle. If you don't know how to do a torque angle on it, you have 90 degrees. This one they want 180. I'm actually surprised it switched as easy It does. It must like the camera, because usually it wants to do a reset after you try to switch the degrees. So 180 degrees. If you have a manual torque angle meter in this application, good luck. Have fun keeping track, because she's about to get good and tight now. Jesus. Okay. When it buzzes, constant beep, you were there. Oops. Oh, we'll have to count that for a little bit. Only like 4 degrees. Okay. You gotta clear it every time. So we account for that. Okay. Good and tight. Okay, so now your cam phaser bolts are installed. There's no going back now without buying another set, so you need to depress the plunger on that tensioner to release it, make sure it pops up, and put some tension on that chain. Same process on the other side, so we're just gonna repeat and then I'll bring you back. All right, well, it's damn near 9 o'clock, so it's almost time for your beer, but here's our new timing chain guide. As you can see, nice and smooth. That one, not so much. So we're gonna install this new one, along with the new tensioner arm and the new tensioner. I already have the timing chain looped in there. I didn't exactly make that mark easy to see, but that gold mark has to line up with that dot on the cam phaser. The purple one has to line up there. The two down here have to go on either side of the dimple on the crank gear. So that one we're not going to worry about too much yet because there's too much slack in the chain for the moment. We're going to go ahead and throw that guide in. Swap them. I put them in there backwards. So now we want to worry about where our timing marks are lining up here. So I will stick you there so you can be in my way. Right now the sprocket is not engaged with the teeth or the pin on the crank. So we get it to there, and you can see where. So we need to rotate the crank just a little bit. That one extension. So we put that long extension with the I'll line up on there. When we pull it tight, it'll pop over that tooth. We will verify when we put the tensioner arm on. Okay, now we gotta make sure we pop that tensioner over as far as it'll go. I should say the tensioner arm. And the light shut off, that's fun. Battery no longer has the will to live. Even the battery's telling me it's quitting time. Fuck. You deck. I got it. You reach it? Yep. Okay, before I pull the pin, I want to make sure that that dimple is in the middle of those two lengths. And we go up here, and we make sure that that gold dimple lines up with, or that gold link lines up with that dimple. That one lines up with that dimple. And then we go down here, and we pull that pin. We keep that. Because you don't always have to put a tensioner on them. So, they go in that collection, depending on the tensioner and the application, you might need a little different length or different diameter. Okay, a couple of things here. I always install those bolts loosely at first. Make sure it's pulling down on to the seals correctly. I don't use power tools to put the valve covers on because if one's kitty wampus on there, you'll feel it with a hand wrench more than you'll feel it with an impact. So take your time. Sometimes you gotta slow down, speed up. We're gonna throw some spark plugs in this thing because it's due. If you look at the end of the spark plug, it's got paint marks on it. That usually indicates that they're original. So spark plugs, rear valve cover, and then we'll bring it back, put the intake on. You're all smudged. All right, what are we doing, Rick? Test fire. Okay, so a couple of things I have to explain. I am able to take my scan tool and do the all injector disable on this. So it's getting no fuel to the engine and then crank it over. So that way we can build fuel pressure or oil pressure before I go ahead and start the engine. That way all the tensioners and everything are all built up to oil pressure. If you can't do that, do wide open throttle. Put the accelerator pedal all the way to the floor. That should disable your injectors. But if you have floor mats, get them out of the way. Because if you get to 98% and not 100, you're going to start that thing at wide open throttle. So that's why it sounds nice when on an initial startup, because everything's already pre-primed with oil. So we've already vacuum filled the cooling system, so we can throw the cap on that, and this thing's going to be ready for a test drive after I verify oil levels and make sure it doesn't leak. Good to go.